I don't have any money.
Never has a TV show been more relatable. Episode 3 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is called The Squire. No spoilers for the future of Dunk and Egg, but if I do, I'll warn you first. The titular squire is Egg. This is really his episode to shine. At the start, we see him practicing to do his squirely duties at the tourney. At the end of last episode, we saw how anxious Egg was getting watching the first joust of Ashford. All those squires were big and strong, and Egg is so little and eggy. He can barely hold Dunk's sword, but it's the effort that counts. This guy is neither Beric Dondarrion nor Mad-Eye Moody, but Sir Robin Riesling with his canonically accurate eye patch. 5 years ago, Robin took a lance in the eye during a different, unnamed tourney. No spoilers, but we'll probably see more of him later on in the season. I really enjoyed Egg's song here, an invention for the show, but very well done. Here are the full lyrics, to my untrained ear. It's a song about his father Mycah and his uncle Baelor, the Anvil and Hammer, respectively, who defeated the rebel bastard Daemon Blackfyre at the Battle of the Red Grass Field. That was in 196 AC, 13 years ago. Egg wasn't born yet, but he knows his father and uncle were war heroes. I didn't super understand why this goose salesman couldn't understand Dunk. There is really only one language in Westeros, so obviously this guy is foreign. He's probably from the Free Cities. My guess is Mir, since he'd likely have brightly dyed hair if he was Tyroshi. Still though, most of those places can speak the common tongue. In the Season 2 finale of House of the Dragon, we see a bunch of ASOIAF people speaking common tongue with Tywin Lannister.
You can topple the Prince Regent and sit the Iron Throne yourself.
Maybe the lower classes only know their local language, but you'd think a seafaring merchant like this guy would pick up enough common tongue to understand Dunk just wants a couple eggs, not the whole goose. Anyways, this does not matter. Look, now Dunk has 3 eggs. This is the Battle of the Humphreys, Sir Humphrey Harding with the red diamonds, and Sir Humphrey Beesbury, descendant of dearly departed Lyman Beesbury. Here is Sir Andrew Ashford, the heir of Ashford, riding down a knight I don't know. It looks like his sigil is a cup or a goblet with some type of bird or animal sticking out. It doesn't match any of the known attendees from the graphic novel or from the book itself. If I'm being dumb right now, correct me down in the comments. The closest sigils would either be a Costain or a Swan, I guess, or even a Stokeworth, minus the green.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
Hooray, we get more Plummer. Basically, Plummer is advocating for sports gambling in Westeros. DraftKings wants to allow a parlay to bet that Dunk will challenge Andrew Ashford and he'll be a surprise victor. I guess. I don't know anything about gambling. Plummer is just saying that House Ashford is broke and the heir, Sir Andrew, is willing to lose to Dunk on purpose because he knows everyone will favor him. So if his family puts a ton of money on Andrew to lose, they'll make a ton of money. By the way, this is all brand new for the show, and I love it. A good excuse to get Plummer more screen time, and it's that sort of skeevy shit that works very well in Westeros. Good job, Ira Parker. This video is brought to you by my patrons. If you enjoy my channel and you want to support me further, please give me $5 per month in exchange for these perks. Early access, updates, your username immortalized right here, etc. Okay, thanks. Back to the video now. This Aerion Brightflame scene is another perfect example of book to screen. The setup, the dialogue, the outcome, it's all basically one-to-one, and it's a perfect way to succinctly introduce Aerion further before the climax at the end. And it's a great way to hammer it into folks who still don't get it, that Egg knows Aerion very well, and he knows Aerion killed that horse on purpose. I gotta say, these unicorn horns are growing on me. They're so stupid looking, but I don't know. There's something about it. I guess I'll transcribe the lyrics of Lionel's song too, the one he's singing with Manfred Dondarrion, the necrophiliac. It's about a girl called Alice who only had 3 fingers, shades of three-finger Hob. And she would finger/fist men in their butts in exchange for money. Dunk says the girl probably existed, but her name wasn't Alice. Why her name was changed, it's for smarter men than him to explain. Well, hello, I am that smarter man. It's actually because, sexism. You see, men only cared about the pleasure Alice could provide them, but her personhood and her name were expendable details. Get your gender studies degrees, folks. Anywho, Egg's explanation is that Alice's story means hope.
On my world, it means hope.
She was crippled and unfortunate, but she worked really hard and gave the whole arm bone when only a finger was asked for, and thus became famous, I guess. Egg sees a little Alice in Dunk. If he fights hard and gives a better effort than most, he'll become victorious. I think this conversation exists to justify Dunk's decision not to go along with Plummer's scheme. He needs to fight as hard as he can if he wants to get anywhere. This witch scene is invented for the show too, and I like it, even if it is a little on the nose. Her character's name on IMDb is just Fortune Teller, although she might remind you of the Ghost of Highheart if you know how to read, or Maggie the Frog if you only watch TV shows. The Fortune Teller says Dunk will be really successful and richer than a Lannister. I guess only George knows if Dunk ever got a lot of wealth. I kind of doubt it. And she says Egg will be king and die in a hot fire, and everyone who knows him shall rejoice in his dying. Well, thanks to that last scene, I can talk about how Egg is actually Aegon, Mykar's fourth son, who eventually becomes King Aegon V. If you don't know about Aegon V's life, and you don't want to know, skip to this timestamp. So Egg does Summerhall 50 years from now. He's trying to hatch dragons using blood magic to enact his socialist policies on Westeros. Raymond Fossaway actually makes a reference to House Targaryen's blood magic.
Blood magickers and tyrants who've burned our lands.
Dany does it too, and for her it works a treat. But for Egg it causes his death, and his son's death, and Dunk's death, etc. He does become king, and he does die in a hot fire. But I don't know if everyone who knows him shall rejoice.
And all who know you shall rejoice in your dying.
I guess the fortune teller is just referring to the lords of Westeros, who would be happy that the king is no longer trying to force them to be nicer to their peasants. But Egg knew other people, like the members of his family who he didn't kill, who probably were sad that he died. This conversation between Raymond Fossaway and Dunk is pretty funny. Raymond calls the Targaryens incestuous aliens, and I'm all for that theory. Which planet would House Targaryen come from? The Trappist system? Raymond is pretty spot on with all of his criticisms, except for the enslaved our people line.
Burned our lands, enslaved our people.
Slavery is illegal in Westeros, and unless I'm forgetting something, no Targaryen has ever sold people into slavery. That's more of a Mormont thing. Of course, you could certainly make the argument that every peasant or serf in Westeros is no different than a slave, since they don't own land, don't really have any rights, and are forced to get conscripted into wars and just get killed all the time. So maybe that's what Raymond means. Obviously, the Valyrians of the Freehold were some of the most brutal slave masters in history, but the Targaryens specifically never do that in Westeros. Well, also, at the risk of sounding like a Targaryen defender here, Raymond's also wrong about them not respecting Westerosi customs.
Dragged us into their walls about a more respect for our history or our customs.
That was literally Aegon the Conqueror's whole thing. He kept all the families in charge who would kneel to him, let everyone keep their religion and culture, and even adopted the faith of the Seven. The only real divergence was Jaehaerys, old King Jaery from the first shot of House of the Dragon. He made the doctrine of exceptionalism, which basically said that Targaryens can do incest and you can't tell them not to. But other than incest, that's the only place they really diverge from Westerosi custom. Well, Alysanne also abolishes the practice of First Night, which let lords sleep with brides in their territory before their wedding night. But that was mostly a northern thing in recent history. I doubt the Fossaways would really care about that. And it was a good call to abolish it anyways, so...
The third's so useless, we're going to ship him off to a citadel to make a maester of him.
Egg is a little bit too enthralled by that dragonfire, man. I'm getting suspicious. The Aegon reveal is done perfectly. Again, book to screen. The only real difference is that in the book, Aerion remembers Dunk, and Dunk reminds him that he thought Dunk was a stable boy. Since they included that scene, you'd think they'd include that line too, but they didn't. Not that it matters, really. Also, I'm not super sure how accurate HBO's subtitles are, like if they're transcribed from the official screenplay or just auto-generated. The subtitles say that Aerion called Egg an impudent little rat, instead of an impudent little wretch, which is the proper and better line. I heard wretch though.
You impudent little rat.
So I think the subtitles are just bad, which is highly inexcusable for a company as large and rich as HBO. I do not like you, David Zaslav. Alright, same time next week for another Chris View. In the meantime, please check out my new second channel. I just uploaded a video from my Patreon there. It's about the Gormenghast books, my second love to A Song of Ice and Fire. Also, I post GeoGuessr there. I'm in Gold 2 division. Okay, thanks for watching. Goodbye.